Hello and welcome back to another video. I'm Zelf, and today's video is going to be really short. I'm just gonna update you with what I have so far. It's so far, from what I can see, it works. It's just extremely tedious. It started off with just the black lines, and then I slowly added then we have the blue lines because I'm trying to find where the midpoint of these specific points are. Then I draw the green line. And what I really want is I want to have an equation for that green line, where as the number of hits changes, the damage would change. I started to realize that there's no easy way to do this. I have to do them in parts. And this is where I realized also that each one of these parts is essentially a straight line. So what we are going to do here is we are going to use that famous equation that we see so often when we were in high school, y equals to mx plus c, which is the equation of a straight line, m being the gradient and the equation of gradient. We have a equation for a straight line for this part, then another one 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 for this part. And it's already solved. Like, I've written all the y equation over here. So in this smaller part labeled 1 is y equals to 50 x plus 100. Okay, and then if it doesn't matter, it could be somewhere around here. It can be 0.5 and put it in, you'll actually get this point, which will give you this value. And this is where I can actually find my y depending on the number of hits, and y being the amount of damage that I do. And since the green line is the average, I'll always be getting the sort of like an average damage that I'll be doing, and therefore we can compare with using this method. For example, this part is going to be this for part 2, and then for part 3 it's really easy because it's a straight line to the side. So this one is basically y equals to this equation, the maximum plus the minimum, maximum being this line, minimum being this line, divided by 2, and that is going to be it. We have the part 4, which is over here. You realize that it's getting a little bit more confusing as it goes to the right side, simply because this point and this point is just the equation for it is just really long and tedious. Also, I added this orange line. The reason why is because I need to remind myself that this part where it changes is not the same as this part. It's actually below this. So this is 212.5 and this is 200. I actually did the first calculation wrong when I realized that, oh, actually this point is not the same. I took this point as 200 and I'm trying to be as accurate as I can, so therefore I drew this and redo the calculations. And then we have equation for this line as well, number 5, and then finally we have the equation when everything goes beyond the point where it does its maximum. So this means that when you reach to part 6, the extra damage, or the percentage that increased, is definitely an extra 325% according to the max stack of viral. Now the yellow parts is really just like boundaries where the x can be. So for example, the first part, x has to be less than 1, so therefore it can be 0.5, it can be even 0, and this part is where the first viral proc happens, where you get the extra 100%. That's why from 100 becomes a 200. Okay, and then after every subsequent is only an increase of 25, 25, 25, all the way to 325. So we have this part of the slope over here, and then after that the average is going to be the same, because the worst case scenario and the best case scenario is going to be a straight line. So therefore anything between 10 and 10 divided by the chance minus 10, which is the total amount of hits you can do to reach the maximum amount of stacks, minus 10, because this part is going to take into a different calculation, and this part also takes in 10 hits. Okay, So that is basically, oh my god, it's so confusing. I hope you guys know what the hell this is, but what I'm trying to say is that we have the boundaries, okay, check. We have the equation of the lines, check. And what we can do is we can merge everything together to make one long string of command. And it's gonna go something like this. If it's gonna be a what if function, so it's gonna go like if x is less than 1, then y equals to this equation, okay? And then it's gonna comma, and then if or else if x is between 1 and 10, then it's going to do this equation. Then else if, you know, again another if what, oh yeah, if the boundary is this one, then do this equation. If the boundary is this one, then do this equation. Oh my god. And then blah blah blah, right, all the way to the sixth part. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to create a table. So we're gonna have like the number of hits, okay, over here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 blah blah blah. And then we're gonna have the status chance that the weapon that has, maybe we start 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. This is what I was trying to explain earlier, but I felt like in the last video I made it so general, it's not very easy to understand what I was trying to pull off. And then from here we know that, okay, at the 4th hit, if you have, let's say, 20%, how much increase in damage you will get with viral. So let's say if we look over here at the 4th hit, which is going to be maybe somewhere here, okay, it will be this much, which looks from this graph without using the calculation, it looks like maybe 170 ish. So here would be like 170%. Okay, so what this table basically does is that, let's say you have 2 slots of mods that you're debating if you should put status or critical. So let's say if you put critical on it, it gives you an extra damage multiplier of, let's say, I don't know, 60%, okay? And then you're comparing with status. So if that weapon, if after putting the mods, gives you 20% status chance, then you know that at the first hit it's going to give you like maybe, so what you can see here is that at the 3rd hit it's actually in par with your critical, and then at the 4th hit, oh, you are definitely gonna surpass being a critical build, something like that. So that is what we are going for. So we're gonna create a table. I already have enough to do up to 50% status chance, and I believe that the calculation and everything is going to work. It's just that now I have to think of a way to go beyond 50%, which is another brain busting thing that I need to figure out. Because when it goes beyond 50%, this whole part is going to go into this part, and it's gonna mess up with the curve. And I don't even think that we can use one constant equation of y equals mx plus c for that anymore. So that is something that I have to think about a little bit longer. But that is so far my progress. You can feel free to check my numbers, because I feel like it's kind of interesting if you can see the different parts and what the line would stand for. So like this one is the maximum plus 100, which is the base damage, times 2 because times 2 because you have the first multiplier, which gets you over here. So basically maximum plus the bottom, and then you divide by 2, you get this point, and then with this point you minus off this whole thing, which is this point again, and then what that will give you this height. And why you want this height is so that you can divide by 1 and get your gradient, because your gradient is equals to y-intercept, or rather y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or y over x. So it's this one divided by this one, and then finally you plus, this is your c, y equals mx plus c, the c, and c is where it will intercept if the graph is like this. So this is your C. And then in this case is the maximum plus the minimum divided by 2. And it's over here, which is 200 in this case. So yeah, if you want to, you can check my calculations. There is a lot. So again, this is kind of a progress update report thing that I'm sharing with you guys to let you know where I'm at so far. We have pretty much done everything that's below 50%. Then after that, we have things that's above a 50%. Probably the hardest part is going to be the part where it goes beyond 100% as well. Now, I do want to point out that this part is very important because this is the part where it changes when the status chance changes. So if, let's say, we are playing with 50% status chance, this entire graph is going to shrink to only 20 hits. So the maximum over here is going to be 20 instead of 50. And because of this, we are actually going to push this whole thing over to the side. And that is how we are kind of going to govern this. So for example, at 50%, it's going to be 10 divided by 50%, which is 0.5 minus 10. This is actually this point. So we're actually finding this value. So it's supposed to be 10. So here, if you divide, you get 20, and 20 minus 10, you'll get 10. Right? So here will be 10. Here's going to be 20. Here's going to be 0. So this is, in a way, this is the middle. This is also considered the middle. The 10 is going to be, this too is going to be 10. Both is going to be the same. Okay, I think I'm overcomplicating things again, but this is, I feel like, necessary to know because depending on your status chance, the graph is going to shrink, and most of the parts that's shrinking is actually this part. This two side parts is somewhat going to be similar. This is where the 28 times occur, right? So most of the shrinking actually goes over here. That's why I started doing it from the third part. We'll see how it goes. I'll try to make the equation work, maybe for the 50% first, and then later on we'll see what we can do for the next 50. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.